Hi everyone, happy weekend. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I have a couple things to show you before we get into this video. Firstly, the 20,000 subscriber giveaway is coming along nicely. I have collected a bunch of things that I am going to be putting in the giveaway, but I'd like to wait another 1 to 2 weeks before I actually spin the wheel, because I've collected some really nice things. And one of the things that I collected, we are going to get into part 2 of have you been involved or in a relationship with a narcissist? And is there hope? Before I get into the content that I want to give you today, I'd like to give you a statistic. The University of Buffalo condensed 31 years of research involving 475,000 participants. Different genders, different backgrounds, different ages, different ethnicities. And out of that 475,000 people, they realized that the majority of narcissists are men. Now, I've always wondered about this, because I have rarely met any narcissists that are women. I've met strong women, but I wouldn't necessarily call them narcissists. I've met wounded women who have a similar neediness to them, but I have not met narcissistic women. In all the years that I've been running my business, I met one narcissistic woman, and, well, actually two. One I happened to care for very much. The other one I had to let go as a customer. But the one that I let go worked in an environment with all men. And so sometimes, in order to get along in that environment, you do take on those qualities. You do take on that persona without even thinking about it. It's kind of an osmosis that happens, because it's your career and you have to figure out a way to function in that. But yeah, she oh man, she, you had to do what she wanted. You had to do how she wanted it. I mean, if you didn't, there was hell to pay. It was a very uncomfortable situation. Now, I understand it was a business situation, but I'm cleaning houses, for goodness sakes. It's not like I'm writing up a PowerPoint display that has to be done by a certain time tomorrow. Okay? I'm cleaning houses. So it really should be more flexible, but there was no flexibility there. And the way that I was talked to was very demeaning and devaluing. And I put up with it a couple of times, and then that was it. I said, I do not need this in my life. At that time, I was cleaning 2, sometimes 3 houses a day. So it was like, my job was exhausting enough without having to put up with being devalued and demeaned and told what I'm doing wrong at all times. So yeah, I have forgiven her. If I were to meet her on the street, it would be a hi, how you doing, in passing, but that would be the extent of it. There would be no friendship there, because I could not have a friendship with a person like that. So that is a really important statistic. Now, I'm not man bashing. I'm not man bashing. What I want you to consider is why. Why is it more men than women? And I think it's because of the conditioning and the societal excuses that men have been given since the beginning of time. And the fact that on a level of male and female, the female has always been put as a lesser than gender. So of course that narcissism would rise up and elevate. Well, we don't live in those days anymore, and we shouldn't be living in those days anymore. Women have proven time and time again, including when we became able to vote, that fight to be able to have a voice and to vote means today our voices should not be stifled by anyone who attempts to put our voices back inside of our throat chakra to stay. And so when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, I mentioned in my last video, you need to pick your battles. At first, particularly if you're a strong personality, you're not going to pick your battles. You are going to rise up at every single situation that comes your way. And you may feel stuck, very stuck, in a never-ending cycle of narcissistic control, manipulation, and yes, abuse. Because the devaluing that goes on with the abuse is a put down. And it can be in many forms. It could mean dismissiveness. It can mean being told that you're a bitch because you stood up for yourself or you defended yourself. You could be called worse names than that. You could also be gaslit in the sense that your brain becomes not dysfunctional, but so manipulated and controlled that you don't know which end is up and which end is down, which is a form of abuse, mental and emotional abuse. You can be put in a position where you have to make a choice over something that you care about or love, such as your family, and put them over that. That's abuse. No one should have to be put in that position where they have to choose someone else over their family or over their own children. No one. And I think for me, that was the catalyst. I was not going to do that. And that was the awakening when I had my both arms outstretched and I was being pulled to the right and then pulled to the left. And both of these individuals, all of these individuals, I cared about because I'm empathic. I have a heart. I care. I love. I was going to stay in the center if it killed me. And that was the 2 months that I cried, and I couldn't stop crying. That was the purge. That was the purging. That was when Jesus came in and said to me, let the golden arrow go through your heart and come out the other side. None of these people are going to be able to touch you as long as you remain in the center. And by gosh, that information that came to me was 100% correct. And it was as if I had risen up out of the quicksand, but my feet were in cement. I was not going to move. You guys over there aren't going to make me make a choice, and you over there aren't going to make me make a choice. I'm making my own choice here. I'm an individual. And did that change anything? Yes, it changed me. It changed me eventually. That was the beginning of the work that I needed to do on myself. And you see, with narcissism, you are not going to win unless you are strategic. And you cannot be strategic and clear and have clarity if your mind is all in a cage and in chaos and in drama 24/7. So the clearing out of that, and that was when I started to, particularly with my business, was to say, I'm going to not be at your house at freaking 8 o'clock in the morning. I need time to wake up, to meditate, to pray, to get my ducks in a row, and to think and to heal. And that's how it started. And then back in 2019, the icing on the cake was, I told you in my story, was when I went to get counseling. And the one thing that this counselor did for me, whenever I began to project outward, whenever I began to say they did this or he did this, or she would say, we're not talking about them. This has nothing to do with them. This is about you. What do you do? How does this make you feel? Where do you think this came from? And a lot of that counseling, I realized that the conditioning started when I was a child. People consider me a chatterbox, and they did for many, many years, because I felt like I really wasn't heard as a child. And so I had to actually learn how to talk and get over my fear of talking. And when I was a teacher, even though it was great practice because the kids were younger than me, I kind of learned how to talk, and I learned how to lower my voice, and I learned how to be explicit and get to the facts, and it was great training. But I want you to think about this. Like attracts like. Why do you become friends with somebody? Because you guys might share the same interests. You might like reading the same books and discussing them. You might like going to the same movies, doing the same things, talking about them, sharing with one another. Like attracts like. So if you are a wounded person, not necessarily a narcissist, you're wounded, you've had trauma or whatever, you are going to be just as susceptible to the narcissist as the narcissist is susceptible to the qualities that you have that they want. I read a lot about narcissism and research a lot about narcissism, and I am not from the mindset that you should run away, run away. I'm not from that mindset. I feel like before you run away, you need to get right in here, in your heart and in your mind. Because you may find that there are some things that you need to change. And when you begin to change those things, the narcissist will ease up a little bit, or a lot of bit. Yes, they're still a narcissist. Absolutely. And it's a work in progress. I mean, the days that I was too afraid to say I am going shopping, I don't have that problem anymore. I walk right out the freaking door. I don't have a problem saying I'm going to do this. And I don't even have a problem saying that I'm going to do something and get flack for it. I don't have a problem. It's now my choice. But it wasn't always like that. And if you've been raised in a home with a male figure is the dominant personality, and the female, leans to that, you might have some resentment. You may know you had a good mom. You may know that you love her, but you may have some resentment and anger and say to yourself, where were you when he was being a dick to me and totally destroying my insides? And you didn't say a friggin' word. How dare you do that to me? How dare you? Children need to have an advocate, whether it's the father or the mother or the best circumstance, both. Okay? So, a lot of times, what happens is you have now taken that on into your relationships. And if you are a strong personality and you know you don't want what you had growing up, you're going to exhibit that in your relationship. But there is a balance that can be reached. Now, with that foundation set, is it still all about them? Yes. Do things always have to go their way? Yes. Do they fly off the handle unnecessarily? Yes. Do they lie by omission? Yes. Are they hypersensitive to your tone, to your facial expression? Yes. It's like the Stepford Wives, the movie, one of my favorite movies. You have to find within yourself your authentic self and know it deep in your core before you can begin to be that. So, there's going to be a little bit of swearing. I'm just to let you know, not in because I have to, because you have to understand the impact here. So, say you go into the bathroom to do something, and I don't know what it is, you're getting ready to go somewhere, and you've tried 50 million times to put your hair up, it's not coming out right, and you walk out of the bathroom and you have this disgusted look on your face. It's got nothing to do with them. And all of a sudden they look at you and say, what the F is your problem? I'm not going to go with you if you're going to look like that, if you're going to act like that. Then, fine. Don't go. Drop it, and you will see. Because if it's something that they really want to do, they're going to manipulate you a little bit further and say, I don't want to fight with you, because all of a sudden now you started the fight because you just had a look on your face that had nothing to do with them. they always think it's about them. And even when they do something to themselves, they make a decision for themselves. If you really look and observe behind, in between the lines, it's not just them, it's because if they hadn't have done, if they had, and eventually you might be able to say, this really doesn't have anything to do with them, really, honey. But you're not going to be able to say that until you have reached that point of authenticity in here, knowing who you are. Because, I'm just not one of these throwaway people. I'm not. Have I thought about it? You bet your butt I have. Absolutely. But I'm not a throwaway person. And I will leave no stone unturned. And if I feel like I've gotten to the very last stone on the planet and nothing has changed and I don't see results, that will be my answer. Or if something comes along that exhibits that I need to make that change, if that other person does something that is so unconscionable, that would be my answer. But I'm not telling you to do that. I'm saying that for me, this is a whole spiritual reason. And if we believe that when we came into our bodies as a soul to learn lessons, that narcissist, however freaking frustrating it can be to live with them, might be because of the lessons that you need to learn as an individual for your own soul. Now, you might have chosen it for a reason from a past life, but it's all in how you believe, okay? I don't believe that things happen by chance. I believe that there's always a reason why something occurs. There's a reason why you met that person and fell in love with them, whether they were love bombing you or not. So when you go inside of yourself and you learn how to perform self-care and you learn how to love yourself, and you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God Almighty loves you more than anything else. In God's eyes, you are perfection. You are a piece of God. You are a piece of the light. You are one with God. And because you are one with God, you are one with the universe. And you are one with everyone you meet. We are all one from the same source of light. And that means that the narcissist is too. Even though their trauma, even though their inability to seek help, even though all of the things that they do that drive you up a wall, there's got to be something. And once you fill your cup, you can begin to pour into their cup, little by little. Little by little. I mentioned in my last video that part of the whole negotiation process, whether you are in the relationship or you're getting a divorce and you're leaving the relationship, is learning to pick your battles. What's important here? Is it more important that, this function over here gets your attention and you're doing it as a volunteer? Or that you are going to spend time with the narcissist, possibly even having fun? Or is it more important that you go do this where you're going to make $200 and leave the narcissist to fend for themselves and get together at another time? But there has to be some kind of strategy. Because sitting there and thinking that, you've got all these expectations. Well, I tell him that I love him and he never tells me he loves me. Or, I make the coffee every night and I cook all the meals and I present it, and then he never does it for me. Here's a strategy. Maybe do that a couple nights a week and then cook a crock-pot meal and say, come help yourself, honey. Dinner's ready. They're not going to let themselves starve. They're narcissists. You got to start somewhere. Okay? If you are in love with this person. But if you're not in love with this person, now remember, empathy, sympathy, marriage commitment, that's not love. Love is the deep-rooted feeling that because you are a child of God and God loves you and you've experienced that and now you love yourself, that the other person is deserving of love too. And it could be very simple. Hands on the shoulders, a back rub, and a kiss on the cheek. You don't have to say a ton of words. Next thing you know, that tirade that you saw has now softened, because they can soften. They're wounded people. They're wounded. And you're probably wounded too. So, I will not sit here and tell you, get out, run away. I will not tell you to do that, because this is a personal opinion, a personal situation, and you may have 30 years invested in this. You may have a house, you may have assets, you may have a joint savings, life insurances, that you've done together. And irregardless of what they would do to you, you've got to remember, they need you more than you need them. They need you more than you need them. And here's a couple of other tips that I have for you. And this won't just help you with the narcissist, this is going to help you in general. Unrealistic expectations will destroy your sense of peace. If you know, because it's happened before, that you are not going to get the expectation that you have, why have it? So in other words, if you are giving strictly to get, that's not love. If you are giving to give out of the goodness of your heart, that's love. But remember I mentioned that you can take on the persona of the narcissist and not be one? If they're never giving to you, and you're now becoming a strong, independent, human being, authentic, the way God intended you to be, and you want to do something nice for them, you do it. You do it. Because that will make you feel good. And that is love. It's not about what you're going to get back. So having an unrealistic expectation of, I'm always doing this and they don't do anything for me, that is narcissistic. And it could mean that you just are, you're drained. You're drained. You're drained mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's why self-care is so important. Have those expectations on yourself. Do something good for yourself that you can give yourself in return. Right? So you do something good for yourself. You go get your nails done or whatever, and it makes you feel good, and you read a magazine while they're doing your nails. You're taking some time for yourself. Now, if money is an issue and you do not have any form of financial independence, you might want to think about getting that. You might want to think about getting it, even if it's a joint account, right? Because that means that you're putting into the pot. You can take something out of it too. Expecting a certain response. If you say I love you and they just don't know how to say it, right? I'm going to say it to you. What if I say I love you and you have a problem with me? You don't want to say I love you back, right? Because that's human nature. So you say I love you with no expectations. A narcissist will say or may say I love you, but they expect it back. How dare you not give me back what I just gave you? They're very greedy. They're very greedy. If they give you gifts, somewhere down the line, they're going to say, well, I gave you this, I gave you this, I gave you that. What have you given me? The motive behind their giving is to receive something. It's not true love. Okay. Expecting normal or healthy behavior. That's a biggie. That's not going to happen. Because at any given moment, the ball can drop with a narcissist. Okay? You know, something can happen that might happen to anybody else. And there will be drama, chaos, and trauma. It's the nature of the beast. So expecting everything to be normal or healthy is an unrealistic expectation because you've already been living it and you know it isn't. So in your little bubble, in your little world, you make it as normal and as healthy as possible. And eventually your bubble isn't going to be popped. It's going to turn into rubber. Rubber. So to sum up this video, part 2 of have you been in a narcissistic relationship of some kind? Doesn't have to be with a partner. It could be with a parent. And in part 3, I will get into that portion of narcissism. Mostly right now, my focus is on a partner of some kind, whether it's a colleague that you have to work with, or if it's, someone you're living with, a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a marital relationship. That's my focus. My goal in these videos is to help you in the relationship to work smarter, not harder. The amount of energy that is expended in arguing with a narcissist is exponential. It is so draining, it can polarize you for days afterwards. Number one, depending on what's said, you've now got to work that out in your own mind. You've got to come back together as a couple. You've got to work with this person in a business relationship. And so, to avoid unnecessary drama, the strategies that you need to have is like a chess game. You need to almost know in advance what their move is going to be in order to win the game. Because, and this isn't about winning and losing, okay? It almost sounds manipulative. But if you during the Holocaust, if you took Jewish people into your home and you hid them, you knew that the outcome, right, is to keep them safe. So essentially, you are ethically manipulating for their freedom, for their safety. And what you're doing in turn here is doing it for yourself, for your own freedom, for your own safety, for your own self-worth. So you want to work smarter, not harder. You want to be ahead of the game. And I mentioned in my last video that this isn't going to come right away. This is why it's so important to take that time every day to process, to contemplate, to not be sucked in, be an observer, and try to understand what is going on here. You already have the label. You already know what it is. You already know that sometimes things are going really good. Sometimes. So what is it that made it go so good? And in order to have some freedom and independence, you may have to lean towards their wants and needs and do what they want in order to get what you want. Yes, it sounds manipulative, right? But the main base of this is to have your own personal freedom, your own authenticity, your own financial freedom, your own personal power, and to feel good, drama-free, okay? So, I'm telling you this because I have made the worst mistakes dealing with a narcissist. The worst. And if you have a family, it doesn't just stick with you, it trickles out to the family. And chances are that the narcissist that you're dealing with has dealt with that within their own family. Now, you may have married somebody who you may have grown up in a spiritual home. Oh, you guys first meet, you're both, say, Catholic, and you both have that kind of core set of values. But your family was much more lenient. There wasn't really any of this narcissistic stuff going on and this beating down, this religion beating down, putting you in your place and, you need to be barefoot and pregnant. Okay, it was kind of a normal home in that sense. And you meet somebody who has been so manipulated and twisted by the religious belief system in that family that they can't break free from that. Even though they've left it, they want nothing to do with it. All of that conditioning from the time that they were a child up until who they are today is still there. It's still there. It's coursing through their blood. And unless they get help for it and free themselves, it's going to come out. The other thing that I wanted to discuss with you is that narcissists have a propensity towards addictions. Because remember, they are hollow inside. They have this fear of abandonment, and it's a hole that can never be filled. It can never be filled. This is why it's so important for you, right? If you're going to do something kind and loving, and you have an expectation, it's not going to work. Be kind and loving for the sake of being kind and loving, because that makes you feel like the person that you know that you are. But to have an expectation that you're going to get it in return, you're wasting your thought processes. It's like you put that spider in your head, and that spider formed all these webs in your brain, and you can't get out of it. Let it go. It's not going to happen. Narcissists, particularly, well, women are been known to do this. Narcissistic women will use sex to manipulate. So, for instance, if it's a narcissistic woman who's trying to woo in their supply, a man, doesn't have to be a man, it could, be the same sex, their partner, they may use those cunning sexual advances. Like yesterday, you could be a fat lump of lard sitting on a chair eating bonbons to them, but all of a sudden today you're so beautiful, you're so handsome. Oh my gosh, I love your body. And they woo you because the supply is, via sex, fills them. And then they get what they want. Right? I mean, I'm going beyond hormones here, because we all know hormones play a part in that. For a man, they will do the same thing to the woman. Let's just say a heterosexual relationship. They will do the same thing, right? But if you do not give in to their demands, the once beautiful, sexy creature that you are, that they have to have, is no longer sexy. They're going to tell you flat out, they're going to find it someplace else. Oh, if you're not going to give me sex, I'll find it someplace else. And there begins the devaluing. And I saw, they make up lies. Oh, there's this woman and she wants me and she was talking to me and boy, I think I'm going to give her a call. And this is why it's so important to know who you are. If you're going to let that eat you up inside, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Okay? Now, the other manipulative thing that a narcissistic woman will do And I'm not talking about being disrespected by the partner and being like, I need my distance, I need my space, I'm sorry, you're not having sex tonight, I can't bring myself to do this, you hurt me, this is what you did, you can say you're sorry, but I need my space, I need 24 hours to think about this. That doesn't mean that you're a narcissist. But if you're withholding yourself from that person to get what you want, that's narcissistic. It's a game, it's a dance. It takes a lot of observation, a lot of journaling, a lot of inner contemplative work. And yeah, so I think that, my opinion is, and based on the statistics, that more men will do this to women than women will do it to men. And it's because I look at what men are taught from the time they're babies. Just playing with the doll isn't going to make them gay. It's a baby. What person wouldn't want a man to love a baby? Does it always have to be trucks and dump trucks? It's really, when you start delving into it and you start seeing that the blueprint of us as souls has nothing to do with any of that. A soul is a soul that has come here for a reason, and it deserves to be respected. Male, female, heterosexual, not heterosexual, gay. There's a soul there. That soul deserves to be respected regardless. And I would like to talk about the marriage commitment. Do you know how many marriages stay in a commitment when there's nothing there? There's nothing there. Zip. Nothing. And there's no love, there's no respect, there's no care. Just because someone has a marriage commitment under the eyes of God does not mean there's a marriage. A marriage takes work, and both parties have to do it. And if you cannot recognize anything good from a narcissist, anything at all, then you know what you have to do. But if you can recognize some goodness, and you can recognize that all of this crap that comes out of their mouths, and the anger, and the gaslighting, and whatever it is they do, because now you're in your rubber bubble, and you're looking at it, and you know it, they're just full of fluff and stuff, right? You can let that go, because it doesn't mean anything. It's to manipulate you, it's to control you, it's to get you to do what they want. And then when you do not engage in that, when you do not engage, the dynamic shifts. And they start to slip out of it a little quicker than they used to. Because they know they're not going to get what they want from you in that way. They're still going to try. It's an illness, it's a sickness. They're still going to try. But there will be less drama, there will be less chaos, There will be less trauma dumping. Okay, so that's what I have for you today. Remember, you do not want to fight in the quicksand, because you're going to go down. You want to stay still. You want to observe your surroundings. You want to be calm. Oh, there's a root. If I can just sidestep over to that, I can pull myself out of this quicksand. And that root is your own self-worth, authentic self, inner healing, knowing who you are, knowing how powerful you really are, gaining some financial independence, learning to pick your battles, when to walk away, when to shut your mouth. You'll learn. You'll shut your mouth, and when you turn around, you'll smile, because it doesn't hurt you anymore. It doesn't hurt you anymore. I love it, because occasionally I will do stuff like this. If something is said to me, I will be like, what are you talking about? Right there. Right there. I've engaged. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Quick sentences. There is one other thing that I would like you to consider, and that is, remember I said that the narcissist almost has an inner, deep-rooted fight-or-flight PTSD? Well, there is something, and I just found this out because I was curious that I said it, and I didn't even know there was such a thing. CPTSD. Look it up. What that is growing up in a family where you were not listened to, you weren't heard, and every time you went to say something, it was dismissed. So you're kind of always put in your place. And they make comments like, oh, you know that, John? Oh boy. The backhanded, tongue-in-cheek comments that are supposed to be for kidding are really meant to hurt. They're really meant to devalue you and put you down. And it could be that the narcissist, if it's a boy, it could be that the father is a narcissist and is very jealous of the son excelling above him. It's really sick. What parent doesn't want their kids to be the best they can be? That's being a good parent. And even if their kids make mistakes and they climb out of that hole and they make something of themselves, that parent is going to be proud of their child. That's healthy. But to be jealous, it's like the mother who's the narcissist, who's jealous that she's getting older and her daughter, who looks so much like her, is this gorgeous, beautiful human being. You look at that and you go, you know, a healthy mother would go, I used to look like that. Isn't she beautiful? But that's okay. She's my daughter and I think she's beautiful and I'm okay with who I am. It's the circle of life. Not jealousy, like, why can't I look like that? Or, you know, or they might say something like this. The son of the narcissistic mother, the son might say, can you believe my wife is going to be 60? She doesn't look 60. And the mother will say, well, what about me? How do I look? I'm going to be 80. The narcissistic mother does not want her son to recognize that he's in love with another woman. It's really sick. It's sick. When you get married, you leave your parents. You recognize them, you go visit them, but you leave them. The cords are cut. There shouldn't be any cords. And the parents should understand that too. They call, how's everybody doing? Oh, everybody's doing great. Yeah, what'd you do? Oh, we went and did this. And that's awesome. Hey, you guys are doing great. I'm really happy to talk to you. Not, I got to tell you what I did. I got to tell you what I did. I got to tell you what I'm doing. I got to tell you what I spent my money on. I got to tell you. How come you don't do this? How come you know? I knew this, but and man, I was just telling somebody the other day that I've got a daughter, I've got a son, and they won't even come to my house and do this and that, and that's narcissism. That's a narcissistic parent. So think about the things that I said today. One more thing that narcissists do to get their supply: they saturate you. They saturate you. They saturate you with their presence. They saturate you with their talking. They saturate you with their stories. They saturate you with what happened to them at work. They saturate you with all the things that they want to do. They're very pretentious, grandiose. If they're not dramatizing and causing chaos, they're very grandiose. So when you begin to feel yourself being saturated, and it's easy to spot, you may start moving in your chair. You may start internally rolling your eyes. You may start to feel fidgety. You may have almost that fight or flight feeling like you've got to get out of that space. That's the time to get out of that space. Find something to do that's calming, that makes you feel whole again. Because they want you all to themselves. They don't want you doing anything else. They have got to have you all to themselves. They don't want you to have any friends. They don't want you to hang out with your family. They can do it, but you can't. They don't want you to become successful because then you won't need them. And they can't hang that over your head. And even if you were successful and say you decided to have a family and be a stay-at-home mom, and they're a narcissist, if you were successful and you were a contributing factor, now all of a sudden they're going to hang their financial status over your head to keep you where you are. It's really sick. So, first things first, step by step, one day at a time. Focus on yourself in a healthy way, not to be selfish, but to give yourself self-care. Observe, detach, get space, find peace and serenity. Take notes, pray, and visualize yourself coming out of this mess, coming out of being stuck, out of this quicksand, into freedom. Until next time, be well and be blessed. Bye-bye.